Corsair,
Apple Floppy Days,
Commodore,
Candy Floppy Days,
Atari,
TI Floppy Days. The weekend comes, the disk drive hums, ready to code for you. These days we're all happy and free.
those floppy days,
The games we play, you shared with me.
those days,
Motorola Intel 6502. Graphics and text are there to view. Composite, color, or RGB. Program fun for you and me.
Floppy Days is recorded in a live studio.
Inside PC Floppy Days, SD Amiga Floppy Days, Junior Sinclair Floppy Days, Classic Days, Microwaves, geeking all week with you. These days we're all happy and free.
those floppy days,
The games we play, you shared with me.
those days,
These floppy days are yours and mine. These floppy days are yours and mine. Floppy days.
Hello, and welcome to episode 158 of the Floppy Days Podcast for November 2025. I'm Randy Kindig, your host. We're currently covering computers introduced in the year 1982, and to that end, this month, I am continuing a series of podcasts about the Kaypro line of computers. Kaypro had a rich and varied family of computers, certainly much more than I ever realized before I did research for this podcast. And in doing that research, I discovered that while Andrew Kay, the founder of the computer company, was no longer around, it turns out his son David, who ran the company for some time, was still around. I was able to contact David, and he graciously agreed to talk with us for the podcast. Kaypro has a very interesting storyline, and I hope you enjoy this. We talked so long that the interview was broken into two parts. So you'll hear part two this month, as part one was recorded and published last month. Following that, we'll delve into episodes covering history, tech specs, etc. on the Kaypro, all the usual topics. It looks as though I'll have two episodes covering those topics. I will have a video for this posted to the Floppy Days Podcast on YouTube. One note here, this is one of the last videos where I used a video conferencing tool that just didn't do a great job. It had a tendency to not keep up with video, and you may note the mouth doesn't stay in sync with the audio sometimes during the interview. In addition, audio-wise, there were some clicks and some low clicks throughout the interview. I've since switched to Zoom, and it seems like that it does a better job of audio and video quality, although it is more expensive. In the meantime, a friend of the show, Brian Cox, offered to improve the audio quality using some high-end tools he had. And thanks to him, you benefit from his work. Hopefully, the clicks are gone, and the sound from both David and myself is better for the interview section. Thanks a lot, Brian. Really appreciate it. You will hear ads from some great vintage computer stores, themselves vintage computer fans, throughout the early part of this podcast. For all these storefronts, when you place an order, please mention Floppy Days in the notes or comments of the order. And that will help the podcast. I thank you for doing that. I also want to mention those listeners who appreciate the show enough to donate through patreon.com. I really appreciate you guys, and it helps offset the cost of running the podcast, like purchasing subscriptions to the Zoom video conferencing service so that I can bring you interviews like this one. I do have some tiers in Patreon for paid members. And one of the benefits that you can get by being a member is getting early access to videos of interviews like the one being brought to you in this episode. I just want to say it's my intention to make all content available to everyone at no cost, while at the same time trying to provide some benefits for those generous enough to provide monetary support for the podcast. Please let me know your thoughts and enjoy the podcast.
Okay, I'm David Kay. I was the vice president and then the president of Kaypro back from in the 80s, from 81 all the way through 88. And after that, I started WordSmart, ran that to 2016, and now I'm doing Knowledge Crunch. And at this point, I have to thank our host, but you are listening to Floppy Days Podcast.
Okay, now for new acquisitions and what I've been up to. And in the what I've been up to category, what I want to talk about is something I mentioned in the last podcast, and that's the Bite Shop 50th anniversary event. I mentioned that I had been contacted by Paul Terrell, who created the Bite Shop back in 75. This was one of the first computer stores in the world and had an important place in the rise of personal computers in those early days. Paul held an event to recognize and celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Bite Shop and all its contributions to history. It was a terrific event by all accounts and included some icons of vintage computing history in attendance. The event occurred the weekend of December 6th and 7th, 2025 in San Jose, California. Paul asked me to put together what he called a mini podcast for the event, which involved recording some computer icons talking about the importance of the Bite Shop and the early personal computers to their own lives and careers, as well as to computing history in general. I agreed and published that 34-minute podcast to the Floppy Days YouTube channel this month. The reason I only published the video is that there are 10 different interviews, 11 different people from whom I was able to get short clips concerning the Bite Shop and personal computers. In the video, I have titles that identify the speakers, and I haven't yet decided whether I'm going to take just the audio and figure out how to identify the speakers in some way so that I can publish it to the audio feed. Many of the voices, some of you could identify just by sound, I'm sure, but some of them you probably would not. One of the voices I would bet that a majority of the listeners could identify would be that of the Woz himself, Steve Wozniak. I was totally thrilled that I was able to interact via Zoom with Steve, one of my bucket list interviewees, and was even more thrilled when we started the interview with him saying, "We can go as long as you want." The focus of all the interviews was the Bite Shop and 50th anniversary event, but if I had known I would have more time with Steve, I definitely would have been more prepared to have questions ready about other topics. The interview came up so quickly with him contacting me and giving me basically an hour to set up. And so I made sure to drop everything else to make it happen with Steve. He was so gracious, talkative, and it looked very well. Anyway, I got about 30 minutes with Steve, and I'm going to publish his complete interview separately. What I also will be doing is putting together a much longer, over an hour certainly, version of the mini podcast, a mega podcast, if you will, that includes the entirety of the interviews with 10 of the people, with Woz being separate, as I mentioned, rather than just the excerpts used in the mini podcast. That'll take me a little time to get put together, but I'll edit and publish that sometime soon after the first of the year. I was unfortunately unable to get to the event I really wish I could have and may regret not trying harder to make it happen. On a personal level, it just would have been difficult to do. The event itself can be found at Facebook, and I have a link in the show notes, or by searching for Bite Shop 50th Birthday Party on Facebook. Okay, now for new acquisitions. So I've only got a couple things that I wanted to talk about this month, both of which are acquisitions from the most recent Tandy Assembly, which was in September/October of 2025. And the first one is something called the Porta MC10. Very cool device. I've been working with the people there for some time prior to the show in order to make this happen. But what that is something that takes a regular TRS-80 MC10, the little brother to the Coco 2, and turns it into a compact, retro, take-it-anywhere laptop. It has an integrated modern display, a clamshell design. It turns your MC10 into a laptop, and with 4 screws, you can turn it back into its original condition. It does require, as I understand it, it requires the Pi Key 10 upgrade for your MC10, which my MC10 does have. And for those of you that don't remember, the Pi Key 10 is an upgrade for the MC10 that allows you to connect a regular keyboard and joysticks to your MC10. The Porta MC10 is powered by any regular Ryobi OnePlus battery pack. So if you already have one of the Ryobi tools that has this battery pack, you can just use that battery pack then in your Porta MC10. And if you don't, the cheapest way to get one is actually buy one of the tools that comes with the battery pack. And they're kind of expensive to buy the battery pack and the adapter for recharging the battery pack. They're just kind of expensive just to buy those. But if you buy it with a tool like a drill or something like that, it's much, much cheaper to get one. If you need an electric drill anyway, that's definitely the way to go. But you can go to Home Depot. Home Depot is the only one that sells the Ryobis, and get one if you need one. Mine is somewhat custom. My Porta MC10 is somewhat custom, as I really didn't want the built-in monitor portion of this. That really adds a lot to the cost. And my plan is to hook my MC10 to one of the portable monitors I've already purchased. And I've already bought some small cases to put all of this in to make the whole unit portable. So the Porta Coco crew, which consists of a dad and his son, whom I met at Tandy Assembly, made this custom for me. So it's very cool. I haven't actually tried it out yet. I don't actually have one of the Ryobi battery packs, but I'm most likely just going to buy a tool that works off the Ryobi battery pack, and then I'll have it. So I'll let you know more as I test that out. And then the other item that I acquired at Tandy Assembly was a TRS-80 Model 4P GoTech vertical sled. So I have a 4P, has 2 floppy drives. I have a Fred, external Fred, that I currently attach to it. But I wanted to start getting some of the built-in pieces. I don't have a GoTech currently attached to the Model 3, and I thought I've got the 2 floppy drive bays, but one of the floppy drives doesn't actually work. So it's just taking up room there. So I bought a vertical sled with a GoTech already built into it that I can put into that slot where that floppy drive is. And then I'll have a GoTech for my 4P. Now, the nice thing about this is it's made for the 4P so that the display of your GoTech faces in the proper orientation when installed in the 4P. The mounting hardware is included, but there's no data cable provided with the sled. You have to purchase a 34-pin card edge connector to IDE connector to attach the drive to your 4P, which are easy to get. They're not expensive. So I do need to acquire one of those, and then I'll hook it up and give it a shot. And that's it for new acquisitions this month.
I'm Brian Cox from Future Vision Research, your trusted source for Learn to Solder kits and FujiNet Wi-Fi adapters, including FujiNet for RS-232. And this is the Floppy Days Podcast.
8bitclassics.com, run by my friend Corey Colts, is a great place to get vintage computer items. He has things like video cables, power supplies, PC boards, cartridges, upgrades, and more for a wide variety of vintage computer platforms. I have Atari 8-bit modern power supply replacements from 8-bit Classics, and Corey recently has added more Amiga stuff in his store if you're interested in that. Corey's been a friend of the show for some time, and I really appreciate his support of the podcast. Check out the site. He has some great stuff. Okay, now for upcoming vintage computer shows. So we are very, very late in the year as I record this. There's only a few days even left in this year, so obviously there are no more shows. But many shows have been announced for 2026. I'm not going to go through the complete list, but I'm going to go through April for the ones that I'm aware of, starting off with January 24th through the 25th. A couple of shows, first of all being Vintage Computer Festival Montreal, which is in Quebec. Tandy Retro Show 2026 that same weekend. It is a virtual show. So that's not an in-person show. It's a virtual show. The following weekend, January 31st of 2026, is the Vintage Electronics Expo at the Oakland Expo Center in Waterford, Michigan. February 14th through the 15th is a Vintage Computer Festival SoCal at the Hotel Farah Event Center in Orange, California. March 20th through the 22nd is the Indie Classic Computer and Video Game Expo at the Wyndham Indianapolis Airport Hotel in Indianapolis, Indiana. April 17th through the 19th is VCF East at the InfoAge Science and History Museums in Wall, New Jersey. April 24th through the 26th is the Midwest Gaming Classic at the Baird Center in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Same weekend, April 24th through the 25th, is the annual Last Chicago Cocoa Fest at the Holiday Inn and Suites, Chicago Carol Stream in Carol Stream, Illinois. And one other thing, I didn't talk about this yet. Tandy Assembly just announced, kind of exciting news for somebody who has attended every single Tandy Assembly, that there has been and was once part of the Tandy Assembly organizing committee, is that they've announced a new venue for next year. It's going to be a larger venue. It's going to be in Cincinnati rather than in these smaller towns like Springfield in Ohio. It's actually going to be in Cincinnati, so there'll be plenty to do around there. So kind of excited about that. That's it for news about upcoming vintage computer shows. While at Tandy Assembly, my neighbor was a friendly gentleman nicknamed Tuck, who had a very impressive display of items for the Model 1 and Model 3 with his shop, Tuck's Workbench, which is at Tuck's that's TUCS workbench.com. This includes hard-to-find parts for broken or failed pieces. And Tuck became a new sponsor for Floppy Days and is a great addition to the family. I have purchased, among other things, a can of paint from him that matches the Model 1 and Model 3 Battleship Gray or Mercedes Silver to do touch-up. Check out his site if you have a need for a new keyboard connector, a floppy remapper, a full-height Gotek drive in Fred sled, or many other things. Thanks for supporting the podcast, Tuck. ArcadeShopper.com, run by my friend Greg McGill, is a terrific site to get vintage computer items. Greg has a wide variety of hard-to-find items for a large number of platforms. If anything shows out of stock, you can just ping Greg through the contact form, and he can check whether he has or can get more of the item for you. Greg also has a BBS he runs called thekeep.net with online games, chat, and file areas. If you have a TI, he even has set up the TI-99/4A BBS software after hours on a real TI-99/4 with a TIPI for Internet Telnet capability. And to access the TI BBS, you can telnet to thekeep.net port 9918. And now we have part 2 of the interview with Mr. David Kay, whose father, Andrew, founded the company Kaypro, and who was the president of Kaypro for some time. Enjoy the interview. So speaking of Microsoft, I read something about at one point Kaypro had to pay them a lot of money, but there wasn't a lot of details about around that whole thing. Do you know the story behind that?
I don't think they didn't charge us any more than anyone else to get started with them. I think the story was at the end when Kaypro, I had left in October 88, and I think Kaypro owed Microsoft about $300,000, and they never got paid. So that's all I know.
Okay.
I don't remember that we had to pay them anything particularly outrageous up front or anything when we started up with them. We just signed up like any other computer company. There was quite a few at the time. Or Compaq and HP and some other brands were out there. I don't remember. I don't think it's any major upfront. We had to pay them, but we did have. I know we did. When my father bankrupted the company when it was on its last leg after I left, and then we owed a bunch of people money, of course. So.
Sure. Okay.
I left. I think it's interesting to point out that the reason I left was that there was no way for us, any other manufacturer at the time, make our products in the U.S. and survive because the margins, you just couldn't get the margin. Father insisted on that. So his solution to the shrinking margins was to go mail order. Dell had done. My financial people and I punched numbers, and there was no way to do that. There was no way to do that because we didn't have the war chest to cut off all our dealers. Okay, there were 1,000 dealers putting in an order every month, right? And then all of a sudden cut them off and then build up our name within the mail order community and do the ads with all the magazines and so on. There's no way to pull that off. There would be there was no cash to do the transition. the amount of money, the money we had collected during going public was gone. So that's when I left, because I knew that it wouldn't work, and unfortunately it didn't. So
I understand you left, then you came back for a very short period of time, and then you left again. Is that what you're referring to, or was there a different reason?
What happened was I got another job with another computer company up the coast here in Carlsbad, Oceanside, and worked there for a little less than almost a year. I worked there, and father at the time was really struggling. Tried to saw the error of his ways as soon as he started advertising in the magazines to cut out our dealers and go mail order. Another, it was a classic channel conflict, if you're familiar with that. What's that? In other words, you got mail order and you got dealers. You can't have both, because you're going to undercut one or the other. You're undercutting the dealers if you have mail order, right? So he saw that was a problem, so he decided he didn't have any money to advertise anyway. So I tried to come back and help him out a little bit, but it was nothing you could do at the time. The dealers already fled, went to other brands, and that was it. So
Okay.
we should have gone over. We were buying more than 10,000 Samsung monitors every month. I was still there in 86, 87. And Samsung came in and they showed us a computer that was built just like our desktop. It was beautiful. They wanted to make our product for us. We should have done it, but I couldn't get my father to do it. So that's how it went. Because they could have, I actually did exhaustive studies and to buy, and regardless of quantity, we could not buy the component, much less all the other labor costs and indirect labor costs, warehousing costs. You couldn't even buy the component for the computers to build them. The Hong Kong Taiwanese manufacturers that the Koreans could buy it for. No, they just wouldn't sell it in the U.S. without a bigger markup. So there's just no way we could have done manufacturing here, especially at our own facility. And of course, another thing that really clinched it for me was when I saw, I think it was in 87. Yeah, I saw the Samsung motherboard. They had this incredibly fine traces. We couldn't do that and have our facilities. Our technology was way behind. So I knew that there's no way we could upgrade it quick enough to do it. So they don't have the environmental constraints. They don't have all the other constraints. And they would have made it. They could have kept it in business, but we would have had to put designed in America, so made in America. I don't think anyone would have cared, but nevertheless, that's another whole. Yeah, but I just moved on. I wanted to do my worst smart company anyway. I really wanted to do that. I wanted to get back into utilizing this stuff. I consider it the fantastic technology that the Johnson O'Connor Research Foundation came up with, and I wanted to use it. I wanted to try to make a go of it, and so I wanted to kind of get out of it anyway. I would have stayed there, but I would have probably been towards building some software products in the field. But in any case, worked out. I was free as a bird to do the new company. The Kaypro had gone under. So
Okay. David, I read in another interview that said you were health conscious in those days and you had a juice bar available to the employees. Is that true? Is that something you continued after your Kaypro days?
would sell a lunch, very healthy, a salad with cottage cheese and a glass of fresh squeezed carrot juice or combination of celery carrot for $1. So that's we did that for quite a few years. Yeah. And
I bet the employees appreciated that.
yeah, so a lot of people liked it. There was sort of a contingent that was more health conscious, but a lot of people, it was probably a minority. I don't know, maybe a 20% or a third of the company would take advantage of it. A lot of people, they want their additional burgers and hot dogs and whatever.
Sure. So, did you stay involved with the company after you left that last time at all, or were you just totally cut off?
There wasn't much to be involved in. I mean, I left in the late '88, I think October. '89 was really tough. I came back around, I think, the end of '89 or '90. A couple of meetings with my father and the bankers, and there were just nothing that could be done. It was the dealers had been left. They had been betrayed in their minds, and they were betrayed. So there was nothing much to do at the time. So father just had to take the thing into bankruptcy, and they didn't involve me much because by the time it went bankrupt, I think it was a two year where if you had left the company 2 years before it went bankrupt, even though you were an officer, they wouldn't come after me. So they didn't. Well,
okay. Well, it seemed like it was a very family oriented company. I think maybe your brother was involved, maybe your sister was involved in some manner. How big a part?
That was overblown. That was overblown. In fact, one of the newspapers got a hold of one of our ex-employees that was very disgruntled, and he made up this term: too many K's, not enough pros. Thanks, Bob. I can laugh at it now, but that it really wasn't true. My brother had a very minimal role. My sister was only the architect of the new building that we built. Oh, and the entryway. So she wasn't involved. My father and I were involved. We were the ones that ran it and did everything significant on the management there. So there really weren't that many Ks. My grandfather was there, but he just did maintenance. There was no who was involved in the kind of operational authority. My uncle ran a printing press for a while, but again, it was my father and I that did it all. And we tried to hire outside talent, but one of the problems that did present a problem in getting outside talent was because there's no real effective board of directors. Because, right? I mean, my father owned 62% of the stock. There was no way to override him. And believe me, I love him, and I loved him still. I love him still, but he needed to be overridden on certain things. So that was where it was tough to get outside talent, and spent a lot of my time just trying to talk to my father about marketing, because he really wasn't a marketing person at all. He he didn't even like the term marketing. He thought all you needed was a good product and some backslapping salesmen, and you could have a success. And that may have been true in the 40s or the 20s. It wasn't true in the 80s. You needed more than just salesmen and the good product. He did marketing. Okay. He, all his career, he'd never done color ads, color brochures, anything. So I had to change all that and convince him every step of the way. He did will do marketing, real marketing.
Yeah. So you talked about the fact that Kaypro started developing, IBM compatible machines at some point. So rather than CPM. So once it was clear that IBM compatible was the only way to survive, did you guys consider exiting the market at that point, or why did you decide to just switch over to IBM compatibles?
Oh, the switch from CPM to IBM compatible?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, because it wasn't a decision that we made. The market made the decision. In other words, IBM compatible was the key. And if you weren't IBM compatible, you just didn't sell. So an IBM had PC DOS and everyone else had MS DOS. And we held out a little while, but it was just an obvious, there was no real hard decision there, but we had to go with the MS DOS. No choice. I mean, it wasn't like we could have we wouldn't have been in business past a 6-month period. The MS DOS had come out and Microsoft was gaining ascendancy, and it was that was it. I used to talk to Bill Gates at the Comdeck shows in Las Vegas. And he was he was a formidable intellect, and he cornered that market, and there's no way of getting around it. So
have you ever stayed in touch with him? You ever tried to contact him since then?
Not really. No, I tried to get through to I went to Seattle a couple of times and tried to talk to the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation about my ideas for using the Johnson O'Connor literacy software and technology, and they didn't want to be part of it. They're totally dominated by the teachers union. Nothing happens in K-12 education, and even beyond K-12 education, you're not blessed by the teachers union. So it's an impossibility. Oh, then I tried to get in touch with them on that. I tried to get grants through them, but everyone in education, especially K through 12, is dominated by the teachers unions, which are controlled by the teachers' colleges and the education department and all these major universities. So I decided to go independent, and that's when I started Kaypro, WordSmart, utilizing the O'Connor technology, and now I'm in Woods Crunch. In fact, it's so I don't want to step on any toes here, but it's a fact. WordSmart, the reason WordSmart actually closed us business because we were sued by the FTC, which are controlled by the teachers unions to a large degree.
Okay.
A lot of people a lot of people don't understand it. They sued Kaplan, they sued Princeton Review, they sued Hooked on Phonics, they sued another one called Your Baby Can Read. Just everybody in there gets anywhere near their turf, they got the knives out. So that's the way it is. I mean, Bill Gates. I mean, not Bill Gates. Apple. Steve Jobs said it best. Until you break the back of the teachers union, you'll never get school reform. It's right. It's right. Milton Friedman was talking about vouchers, print vouchers for school back in the 50s. Now it's only 7 states have them. So it's incredible. But it's the truth. I don't want to get into a political argument. So if that's rush you on, we won't talk about it.
It doesn't rub me wrong. It's fine. So, David, what are you most proud of about your time at Kaypro?
Well, I would say the design of our box originally. It was the unique design and style of the logo that I created with my artist. The lines, and the marketing slogan. We were championing of the independence. I think the hot spares idea. Those two things were very, very important, making us successful. But also the technology, the innovations that we kept adding as technology advanced, we added in different things that we could afford, and to make the package sweeter and better for the end user. So, for instance, we added the printer. We bundled in the printer. We bundled in this software, in different software, additional software. We bundled in other things like eventually we had a modem. We had things like that. I think the keeping up with the incredibly fast pace of the technology at the time, that was a challenging, formidable deal to get things into production and create the literature and create the product and make sure it all played and well with the computer. And so it was really just a challenging thing. And I think we did a good job for a long time, up until around 88 when tried to get my father to bite the bullet and say goodbye to some of his what he was very loyal to. And I know it was really hard on him. It would have been really hard. He never did it, but to say, look, guys, the party's over. Oh, here's some stock, or here's some severance, but we got to get the product made in overseas. There's no other way. I mean, IBM at the time was making theirs in Mexico. I think I forget, it was in Hong Kong or some other place. Everyone was doing it. So for us to do it was not a big deal, but it had to be done because the margins we could not make the products here. I mean, you saw what IBM did with their laptop, ThinkPad. It's made in China and it's under the name Lenovo, right? The name Lenovo, it's a big brand in China. So, but in any case, it's just something that had to be done in order for us to stay in business. Now, a lot of people say, well, come on, Dell was very successful and they did great. They said, yeah, but one of the big mistakes, and I don't want to get on his case, and I love my dad, but one of the big mistakes he made when he tried to go mail order. Okay, one of the things Dell offered, because remember, even Dell computers, IBM, no matter what you bought, you needed to have support. If they would fail, something would fail, the hard drive, the floppy disk, whatever, the keyboard, whatever would fail, right? They weren't bulletproof like they are now. So one of the things that Dell offered was a 24-hour on-site service contract. You bought a Dell. I think it was Honeywell or one of those big companies would come to your facility and swap the part in, within 24 hours. That cost $24 per computer. Okay. And my dad refused to pay that. He thought, oh no, we don't need that. And I said, well, no, that's what Dell offers, and that's why people buy Dell, because they know that somebody could be in their office within a day or so to fix it, right? And a lot of them needed fixing, a lot of them. And that was one of the big sticking points. But you see, you come right back full circle, right back around to the margin squeeze. It wasn't $24 to pay Honeywell Bull to do that because we didn't have the margins on the manufacturing end. You see, so it's all the same issue. Same issue.
Gotcha.
The maturing of any maturing market, you get margins are squeezed, right? You get consolidations and that sort of stuff. So that was the problem. That was we didn't have the war chest to make the transition anyway. We didn't have the cash to make the transition. But even if we could have raised the cash, you couldn't have done it without that guarantee 24-hour on site.
Yeah. Makes sense. So do you stay in touch with any of the people you worked with at Kaypro?
I do. I have a friend that was in the art department and set up all these big trips that we took with all of our dealers to, exotic locations. I keep in touch with him. His name is Henry Hester. Who else? Also, the older folks that were in my father's generation, they passed away. But I can't think of anybody but Henry. Well, there's a couple of people. There's a couple of people in the marketing and sales department that are younger than me and or my age that I do touch base with infrequently, but now and then they're around. Yeah.
Okay. So I don't see any behind you, but I'm curious whether you have any Kaypro computers in your possession today.
Oh yeah, I've got a couple in the garage. Yep.
Okay.
I've got a Kaypro 2. Yeah. I've also got one of the dumb things we did too at Kaypro is try to make a laptop. Oh, that was a mess. Took a lot more money than
what happened there?
Well, that's one point. At one point, we did contract with Citizen, a Japanese company called Citizen, to make watches. You might know them. Well, that company, yeah. Anyway, we had a contract with them to make our laptop. The pace of the technology was too fast, and the constant changing and iteration that had to be done. We just didn't have the war chest to do it with the money that we had gone public with. That burned up some money, and so yeah, so that was not a good decision either. I that's partly my fault. I thought it would be great to have a laptop, but and it took a lot more investment. I mean, all the other companies that succeeded, raised a lot more money than we did. I mean, we only went public the one time we raised $50 million, but Compaq went, and I don't know, four or five stock issuances, and they'd raised tons of money all through year after year. They'd raised money. So did Dell. Now, of course, Dell went private, but so we needed a lot more money to really to be successful with a laptop. still say we could have been successful with the independent dealers, and because there's still quite a few around, even now. There's still quite a few around.
Yeah. Have you been asked to go to any vintage computer shows, and were you aware that there are vintage computer shows every year?
I visit computer stores, but I've been asked.
Computer shows. There are vintage computer shows.
No, for like I said, for all the years I was at Kaypro, the Condex was a huge event every year, and that sort of folded into the CES, Computer Electronics Show, after computers became a commodity. So, but I don't go. No, I don't go. I just look at. I can find out pretty much what the trends are and what's going on with on the internet. I am in a local San Diego club called the Tech Coffee. So we meet every week and we kind of share ideas about AI and different trends in the field and the computer field. Yeah.
Were you aware that there are vintage computer shows that cover computers from that era, like the Kaypro?
Didn't know that. No, but I know that the two fellows, I think I told you the two fellows that have archived a lot of information about Kaypro. They came out here. Well, no, one guy's in Germany, one guy's here in I forget, Indiana, someplace. He's done a lot of work compiling all this. I'm sure he goes to those shows. He says he has 30 of Kaypros in his garage. So,
yeah.
So he came out and looked through all my scrapbooks and looked at he wasn't too impressed with my computer. He knew more about the different models than I do. A lot more. He had the serial numbers and all this stuff, detailed, and it's quite an awakening. But yeah, I know it'd be fun to go. To see it all Osborne. The old Osborne had the 5-inch screen, and they probably have a nice new shiny Kaypro, and it's all maintained. Mine's kind of dusty. And if
it's in the garage, it probably is. Do you ever pull it out for any reason?
I don't pull it out. It just sits there, and I look at it fondly. But quite a rocket ship ride, when I was in that book. But
sure,
it was it's fun to keep. My son told me, "Dad, don't ever throw that away. If you don't want it, I'll keep it. I'll take care of it." I have a 30-year-old son, and he's doesn't want me to throw it away. So I said, "Okay, well, I'll call you if I don't want to look at it anymore." So,
yeah. All right, David. That's all the questions I had prepared. Is there anything else I should have asked?
Well, I don't know. Maybe the management. We had some real back and forth with our management, and I tried really hard to hire outside folks. Just one little bit about the management is my father, he was so used to running a company of a size that he could be in every meeting that ever was in the company, personally be there. At nonlinear, it never got over 100. I think it always stayed around 70 or 80 or 60. So everything that went on, he could know about, and he was a genius. He had a memory like an elephant, so he could be in every department meeting and every decision, on every decision, right? Well, when at Kaypro, we got up to 700 people, and at that point, you really can't do it that way. He tried to explain that to me, but still, no matter how much I tried to talk to him about it, he'd always resent it when saw a meeting going on that he wasn't there in the meeting. But, like he would let me have the creative meetings because I was his son. Nobody else, right? He's always getting involved in the accounting and in the manufacturing and this and that. And I always wanted to hire really confident people to delegate to. Okay. So I saw that that was our path to growth. But and again, I don't want to rag on my dad. He was a wonderful dad and great to work with in a lot of most cases. But he was an inventor and more that was his forte. And when it got into running a bigger company than what Nonlinear was, that's where I think we really had our difference. We tried to hire this one fellow who claimed to be a Harvard MBA, and he was probably the worst guy we ever hired. But the best guy we hired was our attorney that took us public. My dad really liked him. His name was John Hendrick. He was our attorney that worked for a big LA law firm called not Baker McKenzie. It was a company it was a law firm that took us public, and the head of the law firm had become mayor, Richard Reardon McKenzie. That was the name of the law firm, Reardon McKenzie. At any rate, his name John Henson. He came on board as our legal advisor, and and kind of all around management person. My dad liked him a lot, but still couldn't convince my dad that we needed to hire really talented people in accounting, marketing, that I could work with. Manufacturing, he just didn't want to do it. So that really, but John Henry was a great guy, and he helped us a lot. We got sued by every company got sued back in those days by this company called Weisberg something Larac, and Bill Larac was the guy that sued everybody. I don't know if you ever heard about that part of the industry.
No.
Compaq. He sued Epson. He sued us. He sued IBM. He sued everyone. They had these blanket lawsuits that were sort of cookie cutter. They're based on your quarter reports. And he found one little thing, he would start a class action suit against. And he did. And that's where John Hendrick really came in there to really helping us, because he got us insurance. It was $11 million settlement, and our insurance paid 10 of it. We had to pay $1 million of it. It's, so he really helped us. But management was an interesting battle in those days. That's all I have. But yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that's awesome. Hey, so is there anything you want to say to the listeners before we sign off here?
Yeah, we can sign off, and then maybe email me and tell me when it's going to play, because I know my archivist people that are interested in Kaypro want to hear it. So,
anything you want to say to the listeners before we do that?
Well, just that anybody's interested in helping me out with Knowledge Crunch. It's going to be a huge company, I think, here in the next several years. It's taking this breakthrough technology that's been hidden for many decades now, and it's going to revolutionize the way people learn. People are going to start learning more on their smartphones, than they are in school. I think it maybe already be happening. So that's what I'm trying to do, is get this great technology into the smartphone.
All right. Sounds great. They're on their phone all the time anyway, so why not have them learn?
What I'm trying to do is in a nutshell, I'm trying to democratize knowledge. So it's a little,
Okay.
that's a little esoteric, but that's my goal.
Sounds interesting. Sounds very interesting. And I really appreciate your time. You've been great. I will let you know when this gets published.
Great,
Right.
great to have a chat. Thank you.
Yes, it was. Thank you, sir.
Bye.
All right. Bye. And that's it for this episode of the Floppy Days Podcast. I want to give out special thanks to David Kay for being willing to talk with us and tell us about his time at Kaypro and to talk about his father and all the things that he could remember from such a long time ago. I provided links in the show notes for all the great websites we discussed during this podcast. Just go to floppydays.com for the full list. I always encourage you to provide feedback for the show, and there are many, many ways to do that. You can do it at Apple Podcasts. You can do it on the website. You can do it via email at floppydays@gmail.com. On YouTube at Floppy Days Podcast. Via Twitter at Floppy Days. On Blue Sky at floppydays.bsky.social. On Facebook at facebook.com/groups/floppydays, or on the Discord server, whose link you can find at floppydays.com. Besides the primary locations of the website, Apple Podcasts, and YouTube, Floppy Days is available for streaming at TuneIn, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Spotify. If you're a YouTube user, I'd love for you to subscribe to Floppy Days there. That's where I publish all the videos associated with this podcast. For instance, the video of this episode had been published there for early access for Patreon supporters initially, and will be made available for all in a couple months. There are tons of videos out there, and more are coming every month. Go to youtube.com/@Floppy Days Podcast to see all of the available videos. Until the next show, pull out a vintage computer and compute as if it were yesterday. Bye.